thing I should mention is, as I mentioned in all of my Windows tutorials, is that VMware Workstation is very different from something like VirtualBox or Microsoft Virtual PC or something like that. So what you see here is not necessarily going to be exactly the same in all those other different programs, but it's going to give you the same result, but this process here is going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to choose the typical or the recommended option. I'm going to click on next, and I'm going to choose I will install the operating system later. Even though we have this option to put an ISO in here, it's usually best to just to go this way so we can customize it more. And we're going to click on next. And for the guest operating system, I'm actually going to choose Windows Server 2003, but the ISO is for the Enterprise Edition. And just to be extra safe, I'm going to choose the x64 edition of the Enterprise version, because I believe this ISO is for the x64 edition, but it's always, it would be perfectly fine if you install an x86 operating system on a 64-bit computer, but yeah, just to be safe, I'm going to make it a 64-bit VM, but make sure that you choose the Enterprise version, as that is what the actual ISO is for. And once you have all that configured, you're just going to click on the next button, and I'm going to click on next again with that name there. And I'm going to store the disk as a single file. I'm actually just going to leave it at 40 gigabytes because I think that's plenty for a server operating system. And we're going to click on customize hardware. Now you'll see that it has already allocated 1 gig of RAM to the VM, and that is just because it is a Enterprise edition. If it was the standard edition, it actually allocates somewhere down here. So it's a good thing that so basically if you are not able to, or if it doesn't auto allocate it for you, you want to make sure that you're giving it at least 1024 megabytes and 1 processor. Now you can change these values if you want, but these are the bare minimum. I'm just going to leave them like this. And we're going to go down to the CD drive, and you're going to use an ISO image file, and you're going to browse to that ISO that you downloaded. And if you haven't done that, again, the link's going to be down below. And once you have that selected, you're just going to click on the close button and then finish, and it's going to pop up with a new virtual machine. And all we have to do from here is just click on power on. There's no date setting back or anything like that. This is a full final release version of Windows, so we don't have to deal with setting the date back or anything like that. But yeah, so here we are. As I always mention, times are way faster in a virtual machine than they are on a real computer. So if you're using a real computer, your times are going to depend on your processor speed and your hard disk read and write speed and the amount of RAM you have, etc. So I just want to make you aware of that. But so anyway, here we are at the setup. This is probably going to look very similar to anyone who has installed any version of Windows NT before. It's pretty basic. We just have to press on the Enter key, and we have to press F8 to agree to the license agreement. And yeah, you will see here it says x64 edition, so I'm guessing it's the x64 edition. And this is for Windows Server 2003 R2 Standard Edition, Enterprise Edition, Standard x64 Edition, and Enterprise x64 Edition. So we're just going to press F8, I agree. We're going to press Enter to install in the unpartitioned space. And we're going to format using the NTFS file system. I'm actually just going to choose quick, because we are in a virtual machine and we don't need to actually check the actual sectors of the hard drive. But if you're doing it on a real computer, it would probably be best to choose actual or the full format. And now it's going to check the drive, and it's going to copy the files over. And so I'm just going to let this do that. And now it's going to initialize the Windows configuration. And we're just going to press Enter to reboot the computer. And once we do that, from now on, it's probably going to look very similar to any Windows XP style setup. You see, we have a sort of Windows XP style boot screen. It just says Windows Server 2003. And we're going to get to a screen that looks just like the XP setup, but it's in gray, as you're going to see here. Yeah, so just to kind of I guess indicate that it's a server instead of Windows XP. But yeah, so this can take a while, especially since this is the enterprise version where it has like a lot more stuff to install. While it's doing this, I guess I could tell you about the different editions of Windows Server 2003 they had. From what it looks like, they had 3 different main editions. One was called Standard, one was Enterprise, the one we have here, and the biggest one, or the most advanced one, was Data Center. Now the Standard edition was aimed towards small to medium-sized businesses, and it had some things like for file and printer sharing and office secure internet connectivity, and yeah, basic things like that. And it was also capable of addressing up to 32 gigs of RAM. And from what it looks like here, it had both a 32 and a 64-bit version. Now the Enterprise Edition was aimed towards medium to large businesses, and it's a full-function server operating system that supports up to 8 physical processors. So you could have 8, like not cores, but actual processors inside of one server. And it could, and that would allow it to use some enterprise-class features such as 8-node clustering using the Microsoft Cluster Server. And it actually used support for up to 64 gigs of RAM. Now the Data Center version was basically for the best, or for the most advanced businesses. This is like the best of the best version you can get. It supports a maximum of 32 physical processors, and again, those aren't cores; those are actual processors. And 64 gigs of RAM. So you can have 64 gigs of RAM in this thing. And yeah, so basically, and it also supports 8-node clustering, just like the Enterprise Edition. So yeah, that's basically the a sort of technical overview of the 3 different editions. So yeah, here we are at the regional and language options. This is basically just like XP. You just want to press next, type in your name and your company or your organization if you have one. And yeah, so here we're going to get to the licensing thing, where we're going to have to choose I guess licensing mode. So in order to avoid licensing agreement, use licensing which is located in administrative tools to record the number of client access licenses purchased. So we're probably going to choose, I'm actually just going to choose the second option here. I'm going to click on next, and we're going to enter in the computer name. So we'll call this Server 2003. And we don't want to have an admin password. We're going to choose, we're in the Eastern time zone, so let's find that. I always forget where that is in this list. There it is. Nope, that one. And we're clicking next, and so yeah, that is basically it. I don't believe, hopefully, with the whole product key thing, hopefully there's not like a bunch of licensing stuff we have to deal with. Hopefully there'll be an option where you just have to not enter in any key, and we can just, I can show you the actual operating system without entering a key. But yeah, so I believe that is basically all I really can mention in the meantime. So I'm probably just going to pause the video here, and I'm going to let it finish up, and I'm going to come back once it is finished. Alright, so we're at another option here where we have to choose the networking settings. Now we're just going to choose the first option, which is for the typical settings. We're going to make it not part of a domain, and I'm just going to call it a work group. You can change that if you want. And it's going to continue copying files, so I'll be right back once it's at the next prompt. Alright, so the virtual machine has just restarted here, and it's going to be booting up again. I believe the rest of the setup is just very similar to the XP setup. We'll just see what happens next. So we got the same gray screen. Okay, so we got Windows just starting up. Maybe it's done already. It would actually be pretty cool if it's already done. You can see that we have Enterprise Edition. Alright, so we're just going to press Control-Alt-Delete to log on. So I'm just going to go up here to Insert. Control-Alt-Delete. We're just going to press on OK since we did not put a password on the admin account. It's going to set up a bunch of personalized settings. And Yeah, there we go. So, oh, it does appear that this is actually Windows Server 2003 R2. So, I guess, yeah, we'll just go ahead and, go through with this installation. So yeah, we're going to click on next, and it's just going to copy files. Okay, we'll click next, and it's going to begin copying those files. So, while it's doing that, I guess I saw it complain about that our screen resolution was too low. We can probably change that. We'll go 1920 by 1080, and I'll make this full screen. So there we go. We'll keep that. So that's going to copy files over, and it looks like it's done. So yeah, I guess Windows Server 2003 R2 was not, a paid upgrade. So yeah, we're just going to click on finish. And it does have some post setup security updates, so we're gonna have to install some critical security updates and then configure automatic updates. So we'll click on update the server, and yeah, so this is the server